Okay, first step. Start with a length of 19mm pipe, preferably the stuff you get for towel rails, because that seems to work much better. Divide it up into 16-inch sections. Each section will be one handle of a nunchuck, so if you want to vary that length, that's up to you. So if you want shorter, this is the time to change it. Once you divide it into 16-inch sections, cut them up so that you have however many handles you need for the number of nunchucks you're planning to make. Okay, next we need to mark out for drilling some holes. So first hole, we drill at 1/2 inch down, that's for the chain. For marking where you want the wick holes, best way is to hold it up against the wick you're going to be using. Make sure there's a slight overlap so the wick sticks out a little further than the end of the handle, otherwise it'll cut you. So do that and then decide where you want the holes for the wick so that it'll hold it best. So 2 holes, as you can see. Next we're going to drill all these holes out. So each one has 3 holes and the hole should go through the entire length and come out the other side. So I'm going to be using a stationary drill, but you can also use a bench clamp and a power drill as well. Okay, so we've drilled the holes, 2 at this end, 1 at that end. Anything left, as you can see, because you're drilling, you get some pretty nasty little bits there and here. So we're just going to sand those off or grind them off, same as we did the ends after we'd hacksawed them. So all we do is count off 6 links, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we cut the 7th link with a hacksaw. Okay, now you've done the workshop bit, which is the hard bit in my opinion. We're on to the indoor section, so you can do this in front of the TV. It takes a while, but just while you're watching TV or sitting around, you can do it in the living room. So next we need to cut a section of wire, and this is going to hold the chain in the end of the chucks. So you want a section around that long. Now this is how we attach the chain onto the stick. So the chain simply goes in the end of the tube, and the wire goes through the last link of the chain, out the other side. And that's how it holds in. And now all we do is we bend this around so that it's not going to come off. And then another thing you might want to do is take a hammer and hammer these ends down so that it's really, really tight and that's not going to wiggle at all. So, last link of the tube, last link of the chain, sorry. Simply goes through, out the other side. And voila, we now have what looks like a pair of nunchucks. Okay, we've attached them together and we've actually now got a set of nunchucks. Okay, but we need to do a bit of tidying up. So, first thing we're going to do is tape up these bits, just like that. Okay, next we're going to start wrapping the nunchucks. Now, the important thing about wrapping nunchucks is to remember to start your grip from the bottom and work your way up, not from the top and work your way down. This is so, as you can see, the grips overlap so that it slips that way and grips that way, so that when it's pulling over you, it's not trying to grip your clothes, but you still get grip in the opposite direction. So, what we do is, I'm going to use this as a base, but generally we want to cover 2/3 of the nunchuck in grip. So leave a third bare for you obviously don't want to go right up to the wick because it'll just melt. But that's normally about an adequate enough distance. So. Okay. Now when we're wrapping it, you can see that we're having a slight overlap with where the sticky section is. So you can see the sticky section in the middle. Now a little bit of that wants to overlap with the previous bit you've laid down. Okay, now as you can see, I've wrapped further than the end of the chuck, so the chain is sticking out slightly. Now, that's important. Make sure you over-wrap it because we're going to cut the excess off. So make sure it wraps out well past the end of the chuck. cut the excess off, stick it down, and you see you've got something like that. So the next thing we're going to do, stick it down solidly and get a pair of scissors, and then just keep trimming it back until you get right up to the edge of the metal. So just go around like that. Little cut. Start, you can see where the tape ends there. Start a little behind that and go in the same direction the tape's going. So, and voila, that's the end sealed. So that's one handle done now. So we do the same on the other handle, and once we've got both done, we're ready for the next stage. Okay, so let's get started with the glue. Now, here's a glue gun I warmed earlier, as I say on Blue Peter. So first thing we need to do is basically just fill it with glue. Like, it doesn't really matter, just get pumping and just keep going until the whole thing is absolutely filled with glue. Now, once we've done this, you'll probably want to get some extra glue sticks because you will use quite a bit for this. We then want to make sure that it dries in a central position so that the chain isn't coming out of the glue like to one side of the tube and is nicely centred. And that will mean it spins nicely as well as it performs a lot better. Next part, we're going to attach the wicks onto the nunchucks. Now, for my nunchucks, I use 70 centimetres of 60 mil wick. So you can see, that is 6.5 centimetres wide, and I use 70 centimetres for each handle. An important thing to remember when wrapping your wicks is don't wrap them from one end, put them there and start wrapping them like that, because what will happen is you'll get this end on the outside of the nunchuck, and over time that will fray, the wick will come apart, and it just won't last anywhere near as long. So the key is to take it, fold it in half so that both frayed ends are at the same end, and then put that in the middle and roll from there. So what we do is we take a piece of wire, the same stuff we used to attach the chain in, and then we fold it into a U shape, like that. And what we're trying to do is get that nice and straight, but you also don't want it bending round up here, you want the bend to be just at the bottom, and then these two bits to be as straight as possible. Now, take the nunchuck, see where the holes are. Now you want to bend it so that without having to twist, this will go straight through both holes. So, there we go. Now that's come all the way through. So, what we do now is we need to push that completely through. So next, we snip off the excess. So, you want a little bit sticking out, but really not a lot. Okay. Then, bend these over so that the ends are pointing in towards the wick, like that. And then all you have to do is hammer it flat. Now, once you've done that, you simply do the same again with the other end, and you're done. You've just made a pair of fine nunchucks.